Welcome to Newshour. Since returning to the White House, President Donald Trump has wasted no time in reviving his rather familiar approach to diplomacy: make a deal or face the consequences. In March, he warned Iran that unless it agreed to a new nuclear accord, it would be, quote, bombed like never before. A warning accompanied rather tellingly by the deployment of B-2 stealth bombers to Diego Garcia, just in case the message wasn't entirely clear. Russia too has come under fire, this time economically. Amid frustrations over the ongoing Ukraine conflict, Mr. Trump threatened tariffs of up to 50% on nations continuing to buy Russian oil, a move critics say is aimed at forcing Moscow's hand via international pressure. Closer to home, the president turned his attention to Canada and Mexico, vowing to impose sweeping trade penalties unless both nations clamp down on illegal migration and the flow of fentanyl into the US. In his words, the tariff stay until the invasion stops. So while the slogans may have changed, the playbook hasn't. For President Trump, diplomacy appears to remain a rather dramatic mix of pressure, provocation, and the occasional flyover. And today on Newshour, we're focusing on the most recent and most explosive of these threats, his warning to Iran.
U.S. President Donald Trump threatened Iran on Sunday with bombing and also with what he called secondary tariffs if Tehran did not come to a new agreement with Washington over its nuclear program. In a telephone interview with NBC News, Trump said, quote, "If they don't make a deal, there will be bombing. It will be bombing, the likes of which they have never seen before." But he also suggested another outcome could be tariffs on countries that imported Iranian oil in an effort to further pressure Iran for concessions. In 2015, Iran signed a deal with the U.S. and other Western powers, accepting curbs and inspections on its nuclear program in exchange for sanctions relief.
I am announcing today that the United States will withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal.
In his first term in office, Trump pulled out of that deal and ratcheted up trade barriers. In response, Tehran ramped up its uranium enrichment beyond the limits of the 2015 accord. Since returning to office, the Trump administration reached out to Tehran in a letter about coming to a new agreement. Iran sent a response through Oman saying it would not engage in direct talks while under U.S. tariff pressure and military threats.
On Sunday, Iranian
President Masoud Pezeshkian said the U.S. government had breached the earlier agreement and needed to, quote, create trust. Tehran says its nuclear program is wholly for civilian energy purposes.
Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, has issued a stern warning to the US and Israel, dismissing the likelihood of an attack, but pledging a strong reciprocal blow should either nation act provocatively. President Trump, meanwhile, gave Tehran 2 months to accept his offer for talks.
The enmity from the US and Israel has always been there. They threaten to attack us, which we don't think is very probable. But if they commit any mischief, they will surely receive a strong reciprocal blow. If they are thinking of causing sedition inside the country as in past years, the Iranian people themselves will deal with them. Same as before.
In just a few moments, we'll hear detailed analysis from our Middle East expert. But first, let's head to the US and Iran to get a sense of just how seriously this is being taken in the capitals. Kate Fisher is in Washington, D.C. Kate, what's the latest?
Well, Guy, as you said, this is another example of Donald Trump's transactional attitude towards international diplomacy. Now, things were already ratcheting up before those comments that he made over the weekend. A few days before that, he'd already said that bad things will happen to Iran unless it reaches a deal, and that it's very high on his things to watch. And as you said, on Monday, Iran fired back saying that the US would receive a heavy blow in return. It also filed a letter of complaint to the UN Security Council over what it described as President Trump's reckless and belligerent threats, describing them as a flagrant violation of international law. But despite this tit-for-tat threats, President Trump has repeatedly said that he would prefer a deal, and reports here suggest that he is seriously considering the Iranian offer of indirect talks, which they say would be mediated by Oman, who has mediated between the two countries before. But at the same time, the US is significantly boosting US forces in the Middle East in case President Trump does opt for those military strikes that he's been threatening. On Tuesday, the Pentagon announced it was sending additional troops and air assets to the region, and that 2 aircraft carriers that are already there would stay there. And as you mentioned, last week, the Pentagon deployed B-2 stealth bombers to its base in the Indian Ocean, and they can carry huge bunker buster bombs, and they would be likely a key element in any possible military action against those underground nuclear facilities in Iran. Certainly, reporting here in Washington suggests that Donald Trump does not want a war, but that he does want those military assets available to him as a means of deterrence and, crucially, a negotiating tool in any indirect talks. But of course, they are there as well. Should those negotiations fail and things escalate, they do still remain an option, and he has openly threatened to use them.
Kate, thank you very much indeed for joining us, Washington. Kate Fisher there. Well, let's cross live now to Tehran and speak with political analyst Touraj Shirililo. Touraj, always nice to speak to you. Let's look at this then. How have the people of Iran reacted to this latest bout of aggression from President Donald Trump?
At the popular level, people have showed their reaction through participations in demonstrations or in rallies. Most recently, they participated in such demonstrations after holding the Eid Fitr prayers, and a few days before it, on Friday, which was in Iran the Al-Quds Day, it is held annually on last Fridays of the holy month and fasting month of Ramadan, in which they turned out and chanted slogans in support of the government and also against such threats against Iran's nuclear sites as well as Iran's missile program. So this is basically at the popular level, but at the more elite level, as has been said or shown in newspapers, in print media, or on social media, experts are arguing that any such threats of military adventurism against Iran's military sites or against Iran's nuclear energy sites will bring people closer, as they will close their ranks, and they have shown this during the 8 years of Saddam's imposed war against Iran from 1980 to 1988, which this military action or invasion of Iran during Saddam's time not only helped Iran to defend its national sovereignty, but also brought in more unity, and people showed this only because they felt that and they sensed that this is against their national identity, national interest, and national sovereignty. So this could be also discussed. Well, at the official level, well, there are different actions ongoing, like an increased hot rhetoric on both sides, also on the Iranian side, also show of military strength as Iran unveiled a new military side, a new missile side. At the diplomatic level, Iranian foreign minister said Iran supports diplomacy, and that military action is not an option, let alone a solution. And also Iran is bolstering and redefining its regional and sub-regional alliances with Russia, with China, and with regional countries or regional organizations.
Touraj Shirililo for us there in Tehran. Thank you very much indeed for your analysis. Well, now let's cross over to Professor Hakan Öcal. He is a geopolitical analyst joining us from Istanbul in Turkey. Let's get your take on this. Professor, thank you very much for joining us. How is Tehran then likely to interpret Trump's 2-month ultimatum? Diplomatic opening or veiled threat?
It is a veiled threat, but it will something expected in Tehran. Because Tehran really wants to be involved in talks, either as part of a threat coming from the neocons and globalists in the Trump's cabinet, or from Trump's good heart. It doesn't matter. The Tehran wants to talk out of these sanctions and everything, and they are not doing anything illegal. They want this known by the new Trump administration, and this is a good opportunity for them.
And to what extent then does the response of Iran's supreme leader reflect genuine military preparedness, or is it primarily a message for domestic audiences?
Not only domestic, but also Israel should know, and all those Zionists in the Trump cabinet should know that Iran is not an easy thing to swallow. So the supreme leader simply said that we are ready for any eventuality. That's all he said. I mean, he didn't threat anything. He didn't made a new posture or anything. He simply repeated Iran's traditional position on such things. And it's a good thing. I mean, Israel and the people should know that they are not going to swallow Iran that easily, as they did Iraq, as they did Syria, when Israel was pushing and nobody was responding. Now, Iran is not another Iraq or Saddam or Assad. When you are talking about Iran, you should be careful. You should be ready for any response from them. But all Iran wants now, I believe, is sincere talks with the new Trump administration.
That's all they want. Professor, it's very interesting. With Iran ruling out direct talks, what realistic channels remain then for de-escalation?
It's only good faith. I mean, you as U.S. administration either believe what Iran is saying all along for the last 10 years, that they are not building nuclear device or anything. It is only for peaceful purposes, for energy purposes or anything, or you don't. I mean, if you don't, you are risking to kill millions of innocent Iranians, and you are risking to lose anybody in the Middle East is not going to believe in the United States anymore. Not in the United Arab Emirates or in other Arab countries or any other Muslim countries. U.S. is not going to have any support at all if they really go and harm the innocent Iranian people.
Professor Öcal, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Well, many thanks indeed to Professor Öcal there. Well, that is all we have time for on this edition of NewsHour. Please do stay with us on A News for plenty more news and analysis. And from all of us here on the team in Baku, thank you for watching.